Okay, so I gather that we're live, so we'll call the meeting to order. And the first item is the approval of the agenda and order of business as usual. I think everybody knows that NSFM conference has been added. I don't have any other changes myself. Does anybody? Motion to approve.
Great. So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor, opposed, motion carried. Now, I do have one that isn't an agenda item, but we do have a couple of birthdays. Today is Jennifer's birthday, and on Saturday is Pam's birthday.
Oh.
So you know what we do about that.
No, I don't.
Oh.
Read
on, Adela. Read the.
Start us off, Adela.
Happy
birthday
to you.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Jennifer and Hannah. Happy birthday to you.
Well, thank you very much. However, I should remind you that Tammy Harnish's birthday is tomorrow, so I don't think she should get away unscathed either.
We'll come back
Okay.
tomorrow.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Tammy. Happy birthday to you.
Yeah, he doesn't like singing with us.
Yeah, he needs a drink, that's all.
I would thank Bob for this, can
Yeah, so it was him who
I?
started this.
This is his legacy.
Yeah, Bob Myra.
Bob Meyer.
No, thanks, Bob.
Bad Bob, yep.
Okay. Public input, I'm not aware of any.
No, there isn't any.
Okay, thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting, March the 3rd, errors or omissions.
I'll move we approve.
Seconder,
Second.
discussion. All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. The public presentation is what time?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. Matters arising, 6.1 wastewater ICIP application. Jonathan.
Try to make this quick.
No rush.
Just gonna bring up my screen.
Operator.
So this is just basically a rehash of what we talked about last time, right?
It is, yes. It's just, we need either formally approve it or not.
Exactly.
Make a motion to approve it now, or you want to?
Well, we should run through so we can give the context. All right, so yeah, I want to briefly, and I thank you all for your patience for the late submission of the document. What we're trying to do is sort of confirm some estimates for the project. So we've just been working with infrastructure and operations staff just to do that. So a lot of this, as you said, you're certainly familiar with, but just to sort of remind you, in terms of the infrastructure, investing in Canada infrastructure program, environmental quality stream. So we're focusing on wastewater for this project. Eligible projects include wastewater treatment plants, conveyance systems, and stormwater, and with particular focus on projects that result in compliance with for operating systems.
You wouldn't think they'd approve one that didn't.
Exactly. But no, yeah. So the program itself, what's required, as you know, is a council resolution supporting the submission of the prioritized project. The deadline is next week, April 1st. Projects should start either this current fiscal or the following and must be completed by March 31st, 2027. However, one thing I will note is that in with our initial meeting with the senior engineer of the province, they certainly were stressing the importance of favoring projects that were going to have a short window of completion. At least that was the implication. The total amount of available funding is $90 million that's for all opposite municipalities throughout the province. And the ICIP would contribute a maximum of 73.33%. That's federal and provincial contributions. And then obviously we would be on the hook for the remainder. So just to remind you too of where we've come at this. So we've been using the wastewater service study as contracted with EXP to sort of provide us with guidance for the framework to sort of prioritize projects to identify where we need to go. So as you recall, council had a presentation from EXP on preliminary findings on February 3rd. We had a workshop on March 10th to discuss some possible wastewater projects. So now we're at this point. The ICIP in particular there are specific objectives and outcomes, and these are built in the application itself. So you have to address these things, such as identifying how the project will increase the capacity to treat and manage wastewater, climate resiliency and GHG mitigation lens. So how can we demonstrate that any kind of infrastructure improvement we put out will in some way be efficient in terms of its energy, clean energy and so on, and then ensuring regulatory compliance for effluent. The other thing we noted as well in the workshop was that provincial focus, that provincial lens of housing supply and availability. So that's something that we could certainly focus or sort of highlight in respect to this project in the way in which we're hopefully leading further development in the designated area we have in mind. So as a result, that workshop we sort of seem to settle on, but obviously we're here to confirm that, we seem to settle that the wastewater, the Village of Chester project would be the best, would best meet the ICIP objectives and outcomes at this intake. So that being said, council certainly would identify other possible projects, and staff's going to need to bring those to council in the short term here, so we can get going on those. And just briefly, that's Chester Basin wastewater system, looking at a siting study and design for new treatment plants in the first phase of an expanded collection and pumping system. For New Ross, a design for enhanced or new treatment plant in the first phase of an expanded collection and pumping system. Otter Point, addressing regulatory compliance and safety upgrades in order to ensure that it meets existing capacity that's available there. Western Shore, looking at phased upgrades to the system as a whole, the collection, pumping, and treatment. Mill Cove, the construction of the next treatment plant module based on development demand. And then for Hubbardston Sim settlement area, we also earmarked or stressed the completion of the growth strategy project that would help inform the siting study and design work for a possible new system in that area too. So just so that everybody understands, those projects are still obviously on the radar, and staff will be bringing those, a plan for those here fairly soon. So this specific project scope that we're talking about submitting to the ICIP, so it's essentially, there are three components to it. System expansion, so this would be a collection system and 3 new lift stations to accommodate approximately 150 new connections around Stanford Lake, essentially. Capacity and performance upgrades for 3 existing lift stations, and then capacity and performance upgrades to the wastewater treatment system as a whole. So just so visually, the area we're looking at, so that's the expansion area that we're considering. Of course, all the fine detail will come in the actual design of that system. And in terms of the lift stations, because they're significant capital investments, the SP 007, 002, and 003, those is the existing lift stations that would need to be upgraded. Well, they need to be upgraded anyway. And then the new ones would be C, D, and E at the top here as well. So that would be the sort of scope of that core infrastructure that would be the focus of this grant. So as noted, the system expansion would service potentially 150 plus new connections. But the capacity, and this is an important note, the capacity upgrades for the lift stations and the wastewater treatment plant would be built to accommodate full 500 plus that could be available down the road. So therefore, you're only sort of doing that upgrade once rather than going back again.
Yeah.
So it's kind of two-pronged development in that respect. Any questions or comments at this point?
Yeah, I just have one. I understand staff relate. But there are other potential developments. And that's where 500 come in. They could be anywhere within. They could hook up onto sewer
That's right. Yeah.
or further expansions in different areas.
Later on.
Later on.
Yeah, exactly. So there's yeah, go ahead.
No, I just want to make sure that it's emphasized that we're not just focusing on the Stanford Lake area. That's critical. That's
It's stuff going on.
yeah, that's going on right now. But there are other potentials that people are looking at as well that we need this expansion for.
Yeah.
I just want to emphasize that.
Yeah, well, the collection system piece is certainly around that top part that we highlighted around Stanford Lake and so on. But then, yeah, that core infrastructure, those lift stations and the wastewater treatment plant will be expanded so it can accommodate any kind of future development that the wastewater service study has identified.
That's good.
Okay. So the cost then, and I will sort of flag this that we're still working on reviewing these cost estimates, and so we may have to come back to council with a revision to those, but we'll see. So right now the costs are looking as outlined. So the climate lens and GHG mitigation reports, project management, and then the construction costs itself for the capital investments. And it amounts to $11,488,488. So the funding formula, how that breaks out would be that 11 million plus. So 4.5 thereabouts would be the federal contribution at 40%. Provincial would be 3.8. And then the municipality's contribution at 26.67% would be $3,063,980. So that's what we're looking at there. As I noted, we're just reviewing those cost estimates. So if there is significant change, we will bring that back next week for a revised resolution. I think I mentioned the time frame. Oh yeah, so the way we're going to structure the ICIP submission too, again, following our meeting with the senior engineer with the province, was the suggestion of looking at this in terms of phases. So to phase one would be upgrades in preparation for system expansion. So for that, we would upgrade those 3 existing lift stations and the wastewater treatment plant itself. And then the phase 2 would be the system expansion and service growth piece. That would be the new lift stations and the new and the collection system for that area. So that's how we would break that down. So one thing that the province emphasized was the importance of demonstrating in our submission how our application, how the project will meet the ICIP outcomes. So those outcomes in respect to increased capacity to treat and manage wastewater by identifying the condition of wastewater assets before and after the investment. For that, we will draw on the work that's done in the wastewater service study, both in terms of identifying those condition of assets and also staff's asset management training. So we can bring that lens to bear. Similarly, for the climate lens framework, we'll draw on the Transition 2050 project, including we've already established the data for both business as usual operations and low carbon scenarios. So we can sort of bring that data in and apply it to how the ICIP project would help advance those goals. And then, yes, obviously meeting regulatory compliance the wastewater treatment plant upgrades in particular, in terms of ensuring that we're addressing capacity, will help ensure that that system meets peak flow in addition to average daily flow. And then beyond that, we'll also note how the proactive nature of what we're aiming to do in terms of encouraging that sort of expanded collection area will sort of help sort of facilitate new housing development. So that's essentially it. As I said, we need therefore the resolution from council.
Which you have in front of us.
Yeah.
So what do we want to do?
I'm gonna make a
Move
motion,
forward.
You're making a motion, you want to do what?
get the resolution.
To adopt the resolution?
Yeah, I just want to see the second, I just have to reach it.
I can read it out for you if you wish.
He's making the motion, he better read it.
Be resolved that the municipality district of Chester submit the project titled Village of Chester Wastewater Service Expansion Project for funding through the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program Green Environmental Quality Community. And be further resolved that council supports the project and commits to provide its share $3,063,980 towards $11,488 project costs.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Discussion on the motion.
I just have a comment, two comments. One, obviously, I think we've already discussed this, so it's clear that we need this for as a response to this housing issue that we're seeing province-wide. But doesn't this motion have to come from council, not committee of the whole?
So this will be a recommendation to council for next week. As long as we have the motion for next week, then we're okay for the
All
application.
right, I think everybody's in support. There's no question about that.
So the motion perhaps correctly should be to refer this to council.
It's recommended to council.
Thank you.
Discussion on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Actually, can I actually ask a question? It's not part of the motion, but it's part of the discussion that did take place now today as well. And I'm going to zero in on those additional wastewater projects as they're listed there. 6 of them, I think. So just so I'm clear, so it says to staff to develop a strategy that outlines, and then it goes into the timing, all that stuff. What are we thinking? Are we thinking, I know those aren't happening, ASAP, if you will. We've identified 5 years, but what's the timeline for maybe coming back with the strategy within this the upcoming fiscal year to talk about it and to look at it then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Within the upcoming probably month or two.
Okay,
Yes.
excellent,
Soon.
excellent,
Yeah.
because I am very curious about all 6 of them and where they're all going to land.
How long is it going to take?
Absolutely, because again, I've had a recent meeting with the New Ross Regional Development Society, and they reminded me again of just where we are at, and I assured them that as part of our discussion, again, a week or 2 ago, whenever it was, and then also today, that it's not been forgotten, it's just kind of in the discussions and in whatever timelines may exist for all 6 of those. So, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank
So I
you.
had a call this week from a developer who wants to build
Yeah.
a large number of homes and want to know if they contributed some cash, if it would speed things up.
Since we're talking about it, I noticed it's mentioned there about the growth strategy for Hubbard's. But it seemed that whatever growth strategy, if we were to hire a consultant to prepare such a thing, that their efforts should not be just focused on Hubbard's. But it seems to me that clear after our discussion, I reflected on it, and what seems to be missing from the whole dialogue is what is the market demand for infrastructure?
Yeah.
I think in Chester, it's obvious that if we put the infrastructure in, it'll be well used, and we already have developments basically proposed exactly. So, but in other areas, maybe it's not so clear what the priority should be. We can't do all projects at the same time. So if the consultant were to go out and provide the growth strategy for all of the proposed regions, it would actually make more sense, because then we would actually be able to do that priority work. We'd be able to see which areas actually require the infrastructure and which ones do not.
I think, yeah.
Were they listed in this report in priority or? was
Yes.
this a random? The Chester Basin would be priority number,
It has been for a number of years.
and then New Ross, so these are.
Yeah, no, those weren't listed necessarily in any kind of priority order, no, but in the context of that report, they were just listed there, yeah.
Because I noticed.
But certainly that would be something for council to determine, when we start looking at options around timelines and everything, yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
Thanks, John.
thank
okay,
you.
thank you all.
Okay, we have our 9 o'clock appointment. We're running a little late. Sorry about that. That's just normal for us. So come on up, or yeah, I assume you're coming up. You're early. So David, you're gonna do the presentation?
Yes, I am. Yeah, you want to sit here or stand? Would you rather?
Well, you can do whatever you're most comfortable with.
Okay, I think I'll sit.
Okay,
We're sitting, you may as well.
yeah.
Good morning.
Morning, how you doing?
Good morning.
Good, so far.
It's so good. It's early.
So, dear Warden and members of the municipality of the District of Chester Council, thank you for having us here today. I'm David Murdoch. I'm chair of the Lunenburg County Senior Safety Partnership Society. And with me is RCMP Staff Sergeant Vic Whalen, who's the district commander. I'm sure you know him, for Lunenburg County. And he's the RCMP rep on our board and a supporter of the Senior Safety Program of Lunenburg County. We appreciate this opportunity to speak to you about the program's need for increased funding. Our coordinator, Chris Acomb, is unfortunately absent today, but has presented our service to you last year. We are here today to press for a contribution from this municipality of $10,651. We've sent a formal letter and we wanted to give you the opportunity to ask questions. However, before we take questions, we have a short presentation. Recent monthly reports and the 2021 annual report show an increase in the need for the services the program provides. When the coordinator, who is entitled to vacation, family, and sick time, is absent, there is currently no other full-time or part-time staff member to continue with the service for our seniors, as is the case at this time. Since February 24th, no new clients have been able to access services offered by the program, as we currently have only one staff member. The part-time position ended December 2021 due to a lack of funds to support both positions, full-time and part-time, to the end of fiscal 2021-22, till the end of this month. We expect our full-time coordinator will be returning to work on April 21st. Our seniors greatly deserve the services this program offers, and they need your financial support. I'm sure many of you have, on behalf of someone, accessed our service or know someone who has benefited from the services we provide. So we're already at the next slide.
Go back.
Pardon me?
Which slide would you like to be on?
The one before that.
Okay.
Thank you. So actually, the one before that.
You're in a
Oh,
hurry.
okay. The next one, please. So this slide illustrates some of the reasons why there's been an increase in demand. Clearly, COVID is top of the list right now, and there are other things that aren't on that list. So home visits have increased where public health allows. Fraud, I'm sure you're all familiar with fraud and attempts, and seniors are more liable to that. And we're talking about the internet, of course, the telephone, and some people even have the audacity to come to the door. So,
That was on the news last night.
so fraud, abuse, physical, mental, and physical, mental, and what's the other one?
It's all. elderly.
Financial. I apologize. Financial. They are all targeted at seniors in particular. And I mentioned there's others like a housing shortage, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. And also consider that during COVID, people have been confined and people are these seniors are subject to multiple issues, events. So there's confined, people are having to double up or even more than that. And then add into that mix mental health issues and abuse. And it makes life very difficult for some people. Next slide, please. So we require increased funding, and clearly there's a demand for the support that our coordinator provides. But also the funding would provide financial and HR stability to their employment. And we need to have 2 staff, a full-time and a part-time, to provide consistency. As I've illustrated right now, we have no staff. And we need to reduce burnout. So when there's only one coordinator, they are very reluctant to take time off. And we're talking about someone that works in the evenings, and you've been presented about our services by that person, so you know what we're talking about. And believe you me, having another part-time person is a great relief to that coordinator. They can take a day off. And also, the funding supports policing in the sense that the coordinator deals with issues and a member doesn't have to do the same.
Yeah.
And there's really a cost difference in that. And perhaps Vic would like to speak to that.
Yeah.
Sure, and thank you for having us here today to talk about the importance of the senior safety program. I think we've all fall victim to the cell phone calls, emails. I've got a warrant out for my arrest according to Border Services, so we've all had those issues, and seniors unfortunately are very vulnerable to that because they trust people. And we're oftentimes getting calls of people being defrauded in this area of tens of thousands of dollars. And the programs that senior safety provides, and now with COVID, hopefully off in the distance, we'll be able to, in the program, we'll be able to do additional presentations to educate seniors in the community and provide that valuable piece of information to help reduce, even if we save one victim of fraud. But it's a very valuable service. I've been around the RCMP for over 20 years, and since being in Nova Scotia, senior safety partnerships that we've had when I worked in Digby, Queens, and now Lunenburg have been fantastic. And it is a very valuable resource. Like David said, a lot of times we're dealing with elderly people who have been victims of whether it be physical, mental, emotional abuse or fraud. And that there's not a lot at the time that we can do from a policing perspective, but there's a lot of support and education that could be provided by Chris and hopefully her part-time team member. So I'm just here basically to hopefully rally everybody to say that this is a very valuable program, and hopefully it has the support. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Next slide, please.
Next slide, Terry.
So our current budget that is for fiscal 21-22, was 25,000 from the province, 27,000 from councils, just a little over that, and 5,000 from the United Way of Lunenburg County. And if we had to maintain that budget into the next fiscal year, we would actually have to reduce the full-time hours of our coordinator. However, I'm delighted to announce, if you don't already know, that the province, for our proposed budget, the province has stepped up with 100% increase for fiscal 22-23. And the money's in the bank. And we are asking for a 75% increase from councils. And if all councils agree to that, then United Way has offered to increase its contribution by 75%. And I believe a letter to that effect accompanied our formal letter.
Yeah.
Most of those monies go to wages. There's $9,000 of it go to expenses. And that number's kept low because the town of Bridgewater makes in-kind donations to our cause with the provision of a vehicle. So that excludes the gas, insurance, repairs, clothing, office space, supervision. Our coordinators are supervised by the chief of police in Bridgewater. Accounting services, computer, supplying a computer and the internet, and employment management, of course, payroll, HR. Next slide, please. So we have to do it together. We're asking everybody. I'm visiting every council and making our case. And I'm going to leave you with a quote that came from the mayor of Bridgewater, David Mitchell. And he spoke to council on the 24th of January this year. And he said, I know I sound like a broken record when I keep saying this is an incredibly valuable program. And I don't know how they do it with the resources they have. I would encourage the community to educate themselves on what these individuals do, because they're doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Thank you.
That's the end of my presentation.
Can you just tell me, have any of the other councils committed to the increased funding at this point?
Well, as far as the process is concerned, as you realize, it is a long process, but I presented to the town of Lunenburg on Tuesday evening.
Yeah.
And our representative on our board from that council indicated that we have their full support. Whether that translates into actual money, I don't know, but when a councillor emails and says, you have our full support.
Well, it's a positive, that's for sure.
It's very positive. The Committee of Finance for the District of Lunenburg has approved our request.
So it's like all of us, it goes to the budget process.
The town of Bridgewater and their budget comes through the police commission. The increase that would be required to support us has been approved. And I believe that, again, these have to go to a full council vote. So I'm not aware of the process, that familiar with it, but.
Well, every one of us are in the process of developing next year's
Yeah.
budget, so.
And tonight I'll speak to the town of Mahone Bay, and not to belittle their contribution, but we're looking for a $400 increase. So
Small players.
when you put it in that context, I don't think that's going to be difficult to persuade them.
If you were asking us for $400, I'd give it to you, so.
Unfortunately, it's not that small.
What are the numbers here?
We are asking for 10,651. last time, it was just over $6,086.
So it's around $4,000.
And that's an increase of $4,500.
Just as a comment, so certainly Councillor Wells is most new to the table, not new, he's been here since the fall.
They're seasoned now.
For, yeah, absolutely, but I was just going to add that for Derek's information, I could certainly easily provide you with the budget breakdown as a member of the partnership. Previous budget, if you will, and current budget, or what we're looking at, I'm sorry, proposed budget. But it's very exciting, again, not to talk municipal units, but with the District of Lunenburg, that's a hefty chunk. That's a hefty increase, if you will. We would be the second on that list, Derek, in terms of heftiness of a percentage increase, as we all know, because it's the same formula for anything that we look at, Lunenburg County or Lunenburg Queens, like with the library, that's Lunenburg Queens. But I could do that if you want.
Sure.
It's your choice.
Lot of information.
Okay.
Anyone else, any questions, comments?
No, I'll just
Sure.
I fully support this. I think it's a valuable service. I know people that have used it, and I would fully support this. I think it's really needed. We don't do enough for our seniors, and this is one thing, if it can help one person.
Yeah.
So Tina mentioned the budget, and I brought,
The budget.
I didn't share it with you, but it's three scenarios. The existing budget we have now, a budget with the provincial contribution, but no increases from councils.
Yeah.
And then increases from everyone.
Yeah.
And the reason I did that was I needed to know if we hire a part-time person, what kind of hours are they going to get?
Yeah.
And it turns out, essentially, if we balance our budget with no increases from councils, the middle
Yeah.
scenario, if you like, there's only $12,000 for a part-time position, and that translates to about less than 2.5 shifts a week. Bi-weekly. And when you are hiring somebody, they're not going to make much of a living on that. And I, quite honestly, I wouldn't go there because it's really a slap in the face.
What do you get if we all contribute?
We can provide 7 shifts bi-weekly, which is
Significantly.
which is a significant support to our coordinator. And we're talking, I think there's 7-hour shifts, so yeah.
Anyone else, any questions, comments?
No.
So, yeah, well, that was answering my question actually with shifts. I'm sure these guys get calls after hours, after shift hours, I suppose. So how does that work?
I'm not sure about that, but they work regular hours, so this service is not an essential service. It's not like the police or the fire. But the work they do is so much like that in a different way. They're not on the highways pulling people out of wreckage, but they're in homes where people hoard and want home care. And of course, no one will come into a situation where there's a hoarder. So somebody has to clear that home, and that can be done daytime. It doesn't have, it's not an emergency. But
That's such a small.
I believe our coordinator rolls up her sleeves. Like
Absolutely.
when I was told, well, clothing was an in-kind contribution from the town of Bridgewater, somebody said, clothing, what would they need clothing for? Overalls. So
Some
they
cases
can,
hazmat suits, I'm sure.
Gloves for-
possibly,
Yeah.
someone has to do that, and I'm not sure who else would do that kind of work, yes, but it's done daytime.
Do we
Yeah.
repurpose the budget then?
Well, I think that there's a couple options here, and it depends on the will of council. I mean, obviously, we can't make a motion to approve it today because we're in committee of the whole. But it's a relatively small amount of money for the municipality of Chester. So I think that if we were to recommend that it be added to the budget, of course, we're recommending the next week's council, but I don't think that would be inappropriate at this point in time. Yeah.
And it's great to hear you speak that way, because these seniors, you look at the numbers that are of seniors in Chester, the district of Chester that are served. And if you compare with what other districts get, the numbers are different.
Yeah.
But the service is there, not 24/7, but the service is there when your
When
most
needed.
vulnerable seniors need it.
Yeah.
And these are the people who are going to the food bank as well. So, you know, it is a small sum to contribute to what is a marvelous service.
I don't think you need to spend much more time trying to convince.
No, I think it's, I mean, it's not gonna impact our overall budget in any way that means a darn thing to us, really. And it has a big impact on your ability to provide
I wouldn't
service.
worry about it.
It's just important to know about it, and I appreciate, David, your presentation, because this is relatively new to me, and I learned a lot, so thank you.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Derek, I sent you an email inviting us to meet in case you wanted to be brought up to speed on the service, because if Chris was here, Chris would be telling you about the service, which is important. It's an important thing to do, to let you know about the service. But my job is to find the money and to maintain the integrity of our financial situation. And that's what I've been focusing on. So I wanted to fill you in and give you that opportunity, and I'd be willing to do that anytime. So
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Tina,
Yes, thank you. And of course, David, don't forget that this council, as do all councils, receive the monthly reports directly. So that's wonderful information.
quarterly, actually.
Oh, well, we're moving to quarterly.
Yes, that's right.
My last report provided a monthly report to this council.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
and it was reported at that time that we were moving to quarterly reports. So we are moving there. But also the annual report, which of course Councillor Wells and all would have received. So, I'm certain that everybody here is certainly well versed, if you will. I will remind everybody, because we have chatted about it at the board table, that with the pilot program a few years ago to hire that second coordinator, it was a pilot, but obviously we have proven that there is that need. So it's no longer a pilot, in my opinion, but I know we've all talked about this, but I think it's important just to remind us, by going back in some of that history, that kind of was that thought, was that kind of plan of action, not being sure, but it has proven much success that we need those people, both individuals. So depending on where we land with budget, our operating budget, we may see first kick at it next week. I'm not sure where that is. Chad, we were going to receive it today. I don't know why, but we haven't, but it's next week, I guess now. And so I'm assuming that will be on there.
I think it's just the first week in April, is it?
Yeah.
Is it not? Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah, because
we've had some challenges. Senior staff were only able to hold a meeting yesterday afternoon.
Okay. Yeah,
because
but
Dan's
again, I know it's in
been
good
working.
hands or great hands. I wasn't concerned, but it was intended for today. But so great. So we'll just see where that lands. But I've said it at your table, our table, that you have my support to advocate and, do what I need to do here to make sure. So.
Well, it's nice to go away with that feeling
Oh, yeah.
that you support us. And I think the fact that the province stepped up, recognized the work that's being done in Lunenburg County, in particular. And also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the United Way, which is been hugely supportive, and also provide our contingency funding too. So this is fun. This is a fund for those in the most dire of needs for food or shelter. We can help them. Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you. Come back anytime. Anytime you want to give us a presentation, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, somebody prepared to make a motion that we recommend to
Absolutely.
council that we provide the increase in funding.
Boom, yes.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion carried. You can count.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You guys want to take a 5-minute break?